Hey guys, it's Kevin. I just wanted to make this video here real quick to see kind of how I like doing this. It's kind of an experiment. I've never done this before and feels really weird being in front of a camera. Well, my laptop, I guess. But I wanted to basically voice my opinions to see if I like doing this or not. It's something new. If I do, then I might continue making some more, and if not, then that was that. But it's something new, and we'll see if I even have time for it since I'm really busy with law school to begin with. But I wanted to basically talk about political events, legal decisions, and things like that to start a conversation with people. As a lot of you guys know, I'm probably get a little annoying on Facebook sometimes about how much stuff I post. I do try to keep it very civil and not really keep it very bipartisan, but you guys know me. But I wanted to start these to see if people enjoy these, if it starts some meaningful discussion, and see if you guys like this. So today I wanted to talk about what's on the big news is the Court of Appeals decision in the Ninth Circuit, basically the state of Washington and the state of Minnesota versus Donald Trump. And this is specifically about his executive order on seeing if people can, or if Muslims from those select countries can be barred from coming into the United States. And politically wise, I personally thought this was a good decision. The idea that Donald Trump, first off, he really messed up this executive order. It's way too quick. It's horribly written in a way, and it was not a lot of thought put into it. But also, just secondly, because I think a blanket Muslim ban is just a horrible idea. There's a lot of great individuals from these countries, great scholars and professionals and people that can be a very beneficial part of the United States. So having a blanket ban is just quite ridiculous, to be quite honest. But besides politically wise, legally wise, I thought this was an abysmal decision. It was horrible. I thought so many things wrong with it. The analysis was pretty bad. The precedent that it sets, I think, is dangerous, to say the least. And I wanted to kind of discuss some of those and see what you guys think. I know maybe this will be useful for some of my friends that are not in law school, and they'll see more of what the legal reasonings behind everything is. But also for my friends that are in law school, I'd like to hear what you guys think about the decision. But first, the main thing that I didn't like, or what I thought Trump was going to win this Court of Appeals decision. I thought the court would reverse the lower court's decision and say that the executive order should continue to bar people for the time being. The main reason why I thought this was because it's called standing, and it's a constitutional doctrine. And basically standing is where you have to have some sort of case in controversy, some sort of injury to present to the case to even be able to show up to trial, to have a case. You need to prove that you've been injured. And the thing with this case is that it's the state of Washington and Minnesota versus Trump. So the standing would be for Minnesota. And when you think about the executive order, is there really any standing here? Did Minnesota get hurt from this decision? And I personally don't think so. I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say that they got hurt by this executive order. And in the court, the state of Minnesota and Washington, they argue that it's a third-party analysis kind of perspective, that they're doing a third-party representation of people that did get injured. And what third-party representation is basically you see this a lot in like cases with doctors and things like that. So if someone's too poor to go to trial or to have a court case, for instance, like a patient, sometimes the doctor will go in for the patient and represent the patient against a lawsuit, maybe against a manufacturer. This happens a lot when like products liability or when medicine is hazardous or incorrect, or something happens with like a dental chair or something like that. Sometimes the doctor will then step in for the injured patient and then sue the company to fix some sort of wrong, or they have an interest, to say the least. And in this case, to stretch that the state had an interest in a couple of permanent residents or or illegal immigrants in general from these Muslim countries, I thought was a little bit of a stretch, because where's the injury? And the state of Minnesota argued basically that the third party representation came from the fact that a lot of like scholars and professors from these countries couldn't return back to the United States, and because they go to public universities in these states, that when they're not there, this hurts the public university and their research, and then that in general hurts the entire state of Minnesota or Washington. And in my opinion, I thought that was a little bit of a stretch. Sometimes a lot of people lose on standing because it's just such a minute damage. Like sometimes there's been people lose on standing grounds because a tax is so minute that, come on, is there really an injury? So that's where I thought that the state of Minnesota and the Washington were going to lose, and I thought Trump was going to prevail there. But obviously that was not the case. So Minnesota won, and the court voted to bar Trump's executive order. And so I thought that whole the standing issue was incorrect to begin with, but it made sense. But there's still so many other parts of this court opinion. The court opinion itself is 29 pages and it's relatively lengthy. It's a relatively easy read because it has a lot of various viewpoints and things like that. But there's also some other things that I thought were really alarming with this court decision. First, the whole Fifth Amendment analysis, like the due process of law, and having your rights secured, equal protection from the 14th Amendment on, no discrimination against religion and things like that. And I thought the way they argued that was just, they basically just assumed, because the main problem was that permanent residents were in the executive order. Even when Homeland Security said permanent residents are now excluded, the court basically said, too bad, we don't believe the federal government. We believe that it is discriminatory just because it hurts these people coming in. And that brings me kind of to my next point, is one of the things I thought was really alarming was the executive order never had the word Muslims in it. But the Court of Appeals here really inferred a motive behind the executive order. They thought, they were like, oh, we got to watch out. This is a Muslim ban. It's not allowed. And I think that's unprecedented because the point of a judge is to look at the law. And the executive order had nothing with Muslim ban, nothing against Muslims. And basically the court just inferred what the motive behind the law was. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to read the law, and the law is the law. The only time you ever infer a motive from the law is when it's unclear what the meaning of the law is. So you don't know if it adds these people or not. It's just unclear, or it's vague. That's when you look into the motive. But when the law is clear, you don't look into the motive. It's just that. And to me, I think that makes a dangerous precedent for a lot of other laws that are like that, where it's clear, but what is the motive behind making that law? I think that can have a lot of ramifications with like financial things, because it's sometimes unclear what the law means. It takes a lot of opinions and administrative hearings to determine what's right. And basically this gives a lot of leeway to a lot of people to possibly break the law and try to argue that, oh, but the motive behind this law makes it okay. So I think that's a dangerous precedent. Second, I also thought that the way the Court of Appeals just did a whole blanket ban on the entire executive order. They said the whole thing was unconstitutional, which is also very unprecedented. Usually when something is unconstitutional, like a law, a big law, for instance, they'll strike one part of it. They'll be like, okay, Section A, for instance, is unconstitutional, but Section B through D is constitutional. So that part's still okay. That part's still the law. But in this case, they decided to throw the whole thing out in the air and say, nope, we're not counting it. So I thought that was a little crazy. That's really unprecedented too. So I don't know. I thought the legal decision was god awful. I thought it was pretty horrible. I thought the case was going to be reversed. It was going to go to trial and then eventually go to the Supreme Court, obviously, for the real meat of the legal decision. But for now, I really felt like this was judicial activism. I thought the court was trying to be You know, the do-goer, the being a political party. No, you're not supposed to do that. Can't do that. So that's what I thought about the decision. I would like to hear from you guys on what you think. It's always interesting to hear other opinions, and you know, sometimes I'm wrong. I'm not gonna lie that I'm an idiot sometimes too. But you know, that's what I thought, and hopefully, you know, we'll see where it goes on the Supreme Court. It's going to be a tough ride for Donald Trump. Uh, it's 4-4 right now in the Supreme Court, and it's probably going to take a while for Neil Gorsuch to get appointed, especially because Trump's being an idiot right now and he's getting into fights with him. So it's a long road with Donald Trump, but at least it's an exciting one, and it's definitely got a lot of legal interests. Anyways, I'd like to hear from you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you guys did like it, maybe I'll make another one. But until then, I'll see you later, and salute. Cheers.